who all was here last year? Just a quick little show of hands. Gulfstream did an incredible presentation. And I remember after that, I was just like so impacted by that. And I was like, you know what? I've never wanted to go back to work and work so freaking hard because I want to have one of those planes one day. But literally just going video after video. And then before you know it, like, I'm a millennial. You've all of a sudden been sucked in. And I think I probably spent an hour plus just, and you almost just keep going until you practically run out of information to almost watch. And that's really what you want, is people to get pretty much just really fully wrapped into what is this, and because if there's like an emotional response that they just kind of want to keep chasing. It's kind of a lot of how people feel within social media in a lot of ways. So that's kind of where I see the similarity.
So the takeaway, I guess, is you're buying a Gulfstream, you're buying a G6.
Got to work a little harder.
The ER, the extended range.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Welcome to Industrial Sage, a free video podcast series all about digital marketing for industrial manufacturers. Hear interviews with your peers and find out how they're solving the same challenges that you might be facing in your own field. Coming to you from the Optimum Production Studio in Atlanta, Georgia, this is Industrial Sage.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for coming here. This is going to be the secrets of sales and marketing. We're going to be talking about all things about sales and marketing that is going on in the manufacturing and industrial space. I think there's been, it's no surprise that there has been a lot of change that has been going on through the industry throughout the years. And as technology is changing, not only is it changing the faces of how you produce, you make those actual products, but actually how you go to market with them has dramatically shifted. So for today, we've got a great panel here. Now, if you're looking at the screen here, you'll see there was 4 names on here, and there's only 3 people here, so we made up one name. Actually, unfortunately, Shanodeep, he's the Chief Marketing Officer from Schneider Electric, emailed me late yesterday saying that he was unable to make it. He'd get pulled into something, and he wasn't able to make it here. So
you can count for 2 people.
I can certainly talk enough for 2 people. So, So we're changing the format up a little bit, but I've got some really great panelists here, some actually really great stories. We've got Sloan MacKarvich. I want to make sure I get the name right, from Tie Down. Sloan, thank you so much for joining us today. And we have Drew Carl from Superior Essex. He's the director of marketing over there. And actually, it's a funny story. I'm super excited. I want to get completely ahead of myself on this, but Sloan was in your seats last year, and so he was over there feverishly taking notes and doing all this stuff, and he'd look up, and then we'd see notes being taken again and all that, and so he took all those notes, all this knowledge, and I'm sure there's a lot of other information that you were taking from all over the place, and started really implementing this inside of his company, and he's going to share with us some of his insights and takeaways as his company has taken things and started to implement some of this and realizing, hey, we need to make some changes. So that's something that we hear a lot. So it's going to be exciting to share some of that knowledge. And then Drew's going to be sharing with us, kind of some best practices and some things that they're doing at Superior Essex. And we'll jump in to a little bit of that shortly. So before we completely get started, I just kind of wanted to just get a sense of where everyone is. I'm just curious because we did this last year. And I'm going to see if things have shifted a little bit. Who here is their primarily role is sales? If you raise your hand. Okay. All right. And marketing. Okay. All right. Wow. It's even this year. Last year it was trending sales, big time. So I'm Danny Gonzalez. In case you don't know who I am, we are. We're the session sponsors. We're IndustrialSage. We are a media company that's focused on the manufacturing and industrial space. Currently, we have a lot of different content that we produce. Namely, a sales and marketing show that we produce every single week in our studio in Alpharetta. Perhaps you've seen it, where we basically interview executives in the manufacturing space just to kind of get their stories and hear best practices and just see what is working. As I think that everyone can attest to that everything is changing, and it's changing dramatically. And the ways that maybe that traditionally you would go to market, that you would generate leads, that you would sell your products, has changed, and it's going to continue to change. So we found that it was an important need to be able to develop that information and share those best practices. And so we've been doing that for about the last 2 years. So we're excited to be here today to share some of this information with you and be the panels here. So before we get too far down the road, Sloan, could you just tell us a little bit about Tie-Down? Just give a little background information about who you guys are and what you guys do.
Sure.
They do some really cool stuff.
So we're a manufacturer located here in Atlanta, Georgia. We have 8 facilities down the Fulton Industrial Park area, and we've grown to 7 divisions operating in the agriculture, manufactured housing. That's actually where the name Tie-Down comes from. Basically, our very first product was ground anchors that would secure mobile homes to the ground. So started off in a 1-car operation, a little initial investment of a $100 Lincoln Buzzbox welder, and grown to where we are today with 300 family members of Tie-Down. And a few other divisions. We're also operating in the power electronics market, thermal management solutions. We actually launched some of our first products into space this year, which is pretty exciting. And also a real big growth opportunity for us is in the safety industry, providing fall protection solutions and really products that have a pretty big impact in terms of people's daily lives, at the work site, and that's, kind of be, real proud to feel knowing that you're enabling basically people to work in a safe environment. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and I'll share obviously much more in terms of where we're at currently in our company stage. We're just hit our 50-year mark at Tie-Down, which is really incredible. So now we have the second generation starting to come up, and really what we focus on now is how do we set the foundation for basically the second, life of our company and then beyond. So marketing is such a huge part of that, and a lot of pretty interesting things that we've done over the last year to get where we are and actually feel much more comfortable in terms of what that future is going to look like. Because let's be honest, if you're new at digital marketing and basically generating working with all these new tools, it's pretty intimidating and it's really difficult knowing where to start. So hopefully I have a few pointers and based some items that we think that really can kind of make it not seem as intimidating, and also just what seems to work and really where to grow from there.
Awesome. And we're just a side note too, we actually got to tour Tie-Down's facilities. There's some really cool stuff. And I think you told us that you've got product in space, but you also, I think you told me you guys had products all the way from the bottom of the ocean up to space. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. They've got an amazing facility here in Atlanta, but thank you much for being here. So, Drew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Drew Carl. I'm the corporate marketing director for a company called Superior Essex. So we are a wire and cable manufacturer and distribution company. So we've got 3 primary focus of our company. One is a magnet wire manufacturer. So probably no one knows what magnet wire is. Magnet wire is the copper or aluminum wire that's wound in every single electric motor, from the ceiling fans in your house to your sinkerator that's underneath your sink, all the way up to massive electric motors that run power plants, things like that. The biggest area of growth for us right now is the electrification of vehicles. So our copper wire is wound in every single Tesla vehicle, every single Nissan Leaf. And across the globe, we're involved right now in about 155 electrification projects only within automotive. So we are a global player in that. So Superior Essex, we are in 18 plants in 11 countries and on 3 continents. The other side of our business, we're in communication cables, so we make fiber optic cable as well as Ethernet cable. So the whole focus on sustainable smart building technology, so Ethernet technology into manufacturing of pretty much commercial buildings right now. Smart building technology where you walk in and the lights go on. Adjust your temperature according to how you want it. All that is run through an Ethernet system within a smart building technology. And then we also have a distribution business, several distribution business, mostly to distribute our products along the magnet wire, both internationally as here in the United States. I've been at Superior Essex for about 2 years. We're about 90 years old, so we're a very old-fashioned, old manufacturing company. I had no idea what any of this stuff was before I got there. I was brought in with the idea of, hey, we need to go through a digital transformation. We need to bring ourselves up to date with our facilities, our websites, all of our infrastructure when it comes to digitization. So that's kind of really what I've been focused on doing. And then that opens the Pandora's box of all the other things you find when you get there. So it's a good opportunity for me. It's a great opportunity for our company. And there might be some of you that have had that similar old-fashioned company, old ways of doing things, and how to make those transitions to a little bit more of a modern approach. So.
Excellent, thanks. Can everyone hear okay? Just want to make sure these mics are placed good in the back. All right, good. So off-scripted question I'm going to ask. Since marketing, one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit, how is, that the face of your customer, the face of your supplier, the face of your next hire is getting a little bit younger. We're going to call it millennial, the big scary M word. We're seeing a lot more storytelling and B2B sales or B2B marketing that really, even though you may be selling, you're not selling to a consumer per se. You are selling to another human. So in that same vein, just so we can get to know these panelists up here a little bit better. I'm just curious, Sloan, can you tell me about any particular hobbies that you have that you like to do? There's one in particular that I think is really super cool that everyone would love to hear about.
I've gone to develop a couple race cars using basically the latest and greatest in terms of what we have manufacturing technology. One thing I'm particularly proud of, we actually engineer that I've actually got to foster up through the company, and he took a job out west working for one of the new big guys that you can probably guess who it is. And we basically have built now 400 of these chassis. You basically take a Miata, drop in this tube frame chassis, and you have this thing that weighs like less than 1,700 pounds. And I had to do mine with vet power and all that. So I got this thing that literally looks like a go-kart, but it's on steroids. And that thing's a lot of fun to go take around the track. But yeah, that's one of the things I like to do.
There's just one. All right, yeah. That's a great one. All right, Drew. Race car driver?
No, I like knitting. No, I'm just kidding.
That's okay.
I guess passion or a fun thing is I love to snow ski. So I particularly like heli skiing, where they drop you on the top of a mountain, you just kind of go.
Okay, that's like next level skiing right there. Okay, awesome.
What do you do
Very
extreme?
Cool. Well, actually, I got my pilot's license a year and a half ago. So I was super excited about that bucket list item. So that's something that that's a fun hobby I like to do. So cool. Thanks for asking. All right, so let's jump into this a little bit. So what I wanted to do is I want to share some insights and some information that we have relative to this shifting landscape on how people on how people buy and how this is impacting you. So let's look at this, for example. We got 200 million people on the do not call list. That's kind of tough. So from a cold call type, from a sales development standpoint, that gets to be a little bit difficult. How many of you in the last year have gotten some sort of robo-dial? Okay. How many? Yeah, how many in the last hour have gotten one? Now, as a result of that, how many of you answer your phones significantly less? There you go. That's a little bit of that's a very big challenge now. This is an interesting fact that came out a couple years ago. 80% of Super Bowl ads are failing. They're showing that they're not moving the mark like they used to. There's a couple reasons for that, I'm sure. We can dive into in a little bit. It's taking 18 dials to connect with a buyer. So that kind of goes with that whole stat of the whole robo-dial thing and do not call list and all that good stuff. And here's really one of the biggest challenges, and it's very scary. Nearly 50% of B2B buyers are millennial. So this was an interesting thing. I'm going to come back to this here in a minute, but this was taken actually from a study from Google. This is from their insights report. This was back in March of 2015. Obviously, it's 2019. It's not nearly now anymore. So if I can do math and I can understand how trends are going to increase and how people age, that is now, it's over. It's over that. So you've got a lot of millennials now that maybe a lot of them are now moving into the decision-making role, and they're certainly big-time influencers. And that is a little bit of a challenge because there's a little bit of a the way that millennials interact, the way that they want to buy, the way that they are going to perceive your brand as very different than the way that it used to be. Maybe back in the day, maybe it was like, okay, people are going to buy from us because our brand is synonymous with quality and it's big, and we're the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and people are just going to buy from us just because of that. That has changed. And it's changed a lot because of this technology, this kind of thing. How many people over the holiday season actually went into a brick and mortar store to go buy a present? Actually, show of hands. I'm very curious, how many went at all? Okay. How many bought something online? Okay, that's everybody right there. So obviously we are, and this isn't necessarily just a millennial thing, but just as a society, as a whole, we are predisposed and we are conditioned to want to buy something at our fingertips. We want information on demand. When we have a problem or a challenge, what do? You naturally open up the yellow pages and go look for, no, you don't do that anymore. Yeah, exactly. What's the yellow page? Side stories as things have changed and shifted. I was driving down the road just a couple weeks ago with my kids. I got a bunch of kids, oldest one's 7, and driving down the road, and this IndustrialSage is on. We've got we shoot the video content, but then we also release it as a podcast, so it's on all the podcasting stations. And so I wanted to share with them. I wanted to show the kids, like, hey, you want to hear Daddy on? And I was trying to explain, like, well, I guess they don't really know what a podcast is. Maybe, I don't know. But I would tell, it's on the radio. That's what it is. So I was, all right, you want to hear Daddy on the radio? And man, this was the worst thing I think I've ever heard out of my kid's mouth. Well, maybe not, but close. Daddy, what's the radio? Oh my gosh. Wow, talk about, I feel old. Like, wait a minute, how is it, do we shelter my kids that much? Or I guess we think about it when you're driving down the road. I mean, you're listening to Spotify. I don't know, listen to Spotify, or if you're playing something from your phone. I really don't listen to the radio anymore. Neither does my wife. And as a result, my kids are just completely like, what the heck's a radio? Big shift. We're going to circle back on this. So the net of it is that marketing really isn't working like it used to before. Okay, it's changed, and we must now really attract our ideal buyers, and this is sort of a methodology and a shift that we need to be thinking about a little bit more. There's a story from Caterpillar, and this actually came out from 2015. We're going to call this their aha moment. They had a radical shift. If you go look at their marketing and what they're doing now relative to what they were doing pre-2015, they have changed it dramatically. They've uncovered these results from Google, from that Insights report, and they said, okay, we need to change how we're going to market. We need to change how we are going to reach our buyer. Maybe that's the decision maker, certainly the influencer, and we need to shift it. We need to be more millennial-esque. Well, what's millennial-esque? Well, that's going to be a lot more story-driven, something that's going to be more human, more, instead of being super transactional and saying, hey, come buy this, it's the latest and greatest thing, it's maybe we're going to share some stories, and we're going to connect on and build a relationship before we're going to say, buy from us. So what they did is they completely changed how they went to market. They started creating different video content, the voice of the customer. So you started seeing video series and different elements that was just focused, instead of on them saying, look at us, we're amazing, they shifted it to the customer and said, let's focus on our customer. Our customer's amazing. And let's share stories on what this guy is doing with their equipment to build the school of the future, and let's go into that story. So it's not so much about us, it's about them. That was a big shift. And you're seeing that routinely right now, and you're going to see that increase. So Seth Godin, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him. He talks about marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. Storytelling. You hear about this a lot. The story brand is a big thing. How do you tell your story? Do you communicate it? How do people receive it? These are very big things that we need to be thinking about. Again, this thing right here. Everyone's got a smartphone. As many times we may want to chuck it because it robo-dials and you're instantly accessible to everything. So there's a fundamental question we want to ask. Where are your customers found? Where are they right now? How do you find them? Or how do they find you? I've got some data and some insights I want to share with you. If you were in the general session at the lunch break, I talked about the insight survey that we did last year, and we're doing it again this year. We talked to 150 manufacturers to get an understanding of where they were thinking, what was important to them from an investment standpoint relative to marketing and sales for 2019. We're kicking that off again. We're doing that right now. We should be wrapped up in the next 2 weeks or so. We're going to put together this report. And here's some data and some information that we found. So this is, I think this is very good from a benchmarking standpoint. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed my cue. I thought that was coming up. It's up in a minute. Google, 3.5 billion searches per day. That's crazy. Facebook, 1.45 billion daily active users. That's and they do this about 20 to 50 minutes per day. What that means is Facebook has a lot more users, but this is how many are actually using that platform every single day. And the really interesting thing about this is that you may think, okay, yeah, well, we're in manufacturing, and what does that mean? Are my buyers going to buy something through Facebook, or are they? Is that the platform they're ready? What it is people. You got to go where your customers are. So if people are using Google, they have a challenge, and they want to start finding that information. They've got the solution they're looking for, and that's where they're going. That's where you need to be. If your audience, I'm not saying that your audience is on Facebook. There's a good chance they are, but that might not be. LinkedIn's a big one, but you need to be there in some form or fashion. Okay, 20 to 50 minutes per day. 94% of business buyers do some form of online research. This is coming up from 2014. I imagine that has increased or stayed the same. Nearly 50% of B2B buyers watch 30 minutes of video before making a purchase. It's very interesting. It's super interesting.
That's shocking.
Why is that shocking?
Think of it. That's a tremendous. I mean, when you think of just going online and just quickly looking up a customer website, really, when you think about it, you're also, well, how much farther can I navigate? And you want to see more than just those just quick images that pop up.
Right,
what do they have for video? And before you know it, you just kind of snowball out of control. Part of a good example, last year, Gulfstream who all was here last year? Just a quick little show of hands. Gulfstream did an incredible presentation. And I remember after that, I was just so impacted by that. And I was like, you know what? I've never wanted to go back to work and work so freaking hard because I want to have one of those planes one day. But literally just going video after video. And then before you know it, I'm a millennial. You've all of a sudden been sucked in. And I think I probably spent an hour plus just, and you almost just keep going until you practically run out of information, almost watch. And that's really what you want, is people to get pretty much just really fully wrapped into what is this, and because if there's an emotional response that they just kind of want to keep chasing. That's kind of a lot of how people feel within social media in a lot of ways. So that's kind of where I see the similarity.
So the takeaway, I guess, is you're buying a Gulfstream, you're buying a G6.
Got to work a little harder.
The ER, the extended range.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. It could be top. It's all the way. It's not like they're watching one 30-minute long video, but typically what you see, I don't want to completely get into the weeds, but say you have a top of the funnel, we'll call it bacon wrap type video at the very beginning, something that's going to draw you in, something that's going to excite you and tease you and say, yeah, I want to learn more about this. And then they come in and they watch something that's going to be maybe 2 to 3 minutes long. It's a little bit more informational. And as they come down the funnel, they're going to watch more content that's going to be maybe a little less flashy, that might be a little bit longer. You see this, let's say, you're going to come in, maybe you're willing to watch a 20-minute long demo or something that's going to really get into the weeds as you come down the funnel, and you move down that decision-making process. So you're not going to come in there and you're going to binge watch like you would Netflix and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and all of a sudden, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and spend $150,000 on this process. We're going to start here, we're going to learn a little bit more, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to watch some more. So that's where it's come from. Going from sort of the traditional ways, sort of the new ways, is not to force information on your target audience. There's a thing called disruptive marketing. It's something when you are marketed to, when you're not expecting something, you are disrupted, versus saying, I'm ready to start this buying journey, and I want to go start looking for this information. That's where we need to start, placing ourselves there versus saying, hey, we're going to start, come out and we're going to start throwing all these advertisements at you. You're not necessarily ready to buy. That's disruptive. We need to make sure that we have our content, we're there, and we're ready to go when you start going down that process. And that goes to be where your prospects are. Be where your prospects are looking on the internet. That's sort of really, at the end of the day, is that, if you don't have an online presence, if you've not, this is stuff that we've talked about in the past, you have to be there. You have to have that presence there. So are you where your prospects are looking? That's a good question. So what I want to do at this point is I want to kind of kick things over to you, Drew, a little bit and just talk about how things look at Superior Essex. You were talking about how you kind of were brought into this role to be able to, so they wanted to they're going through this digital transformation and they wanted to kind of, bring you in for this. Can you just kind of tell us, what did it look like before and what were some of those first steps that you took?
So we had websites that were pretty bad, to be honest. Our websites were really run by our IT department. Had to kind of wrestle that back into marketing. But you have to do that in a way that IT is comfortable. I'm in a large organization, so we got to work through that. But understanding that websites are really a marketing tool. They're not a IT tool. So that was probably one of the first. The other part that was really fundamental to when I came in was really content. And I know that's a thing that's thrown around a lot in marketing, digital marketing these days. What is content? Content is a lot of things. Content is video. That's one of the aspects of content. But then there's also other forms. There's long form, there's short form. Long form being case studies or white papers or in-depth digital, in-depth research onto your products and what it's done. Short form is usually taking a part of that and sinking it down in just a small snippet of maybe some aspect or some application that your product is really good at doing. So that was a big part about what I had to do is coming in with our organization is bring in someone who could write, bring in someone who could interview, and take, because we have a lot of knowledge. We're a 90-year-old company. The average tenure for most of the people with our company is about 22 years. So there's a lot of engineers, a lot of individuals with our company that have a lot of knowledge about our industry and specifically about our product line. So we needed to be able to take that out of their brains and put it onto a piece of paper and create some sort of digital form of marketing where people could engage with that, because the buying journey has changed dramatically. So one of the things that has happened in B2B, I'll think specifically, is it's not one person buying anymore. It's a buying committee. It's a whole group of people involved. Yes, what a lot of people don't understand is the person you're talking to in that final buying, they're just the face of that. Maybe it's a pure procurement manager, maybe it's the engineer or whoever is going to be buying that. But believe me, that there's a huge group of people involved behind the scenes. A lot of people you'll never even contact and never even be involved with. And if you can create content to help them through that process, because they're all going through that buying process, and content helps them do that. My favorite really are case studies. And why? If you do a case study the right way, it's got to be solution-based. Kind of talking about it, it's more about you're trying to get the customer to relate to that other customer that bought from you before. That they go, yeah, I've had that problem. Yeah, we sucked like that. Yeah, we need to get that solution that they got, and they are able to go through there. And also, to your point, ma'am, is to be able to understand, is this the type of company that can help walk us through this process? Businesses buy things because they need to, not because they want to. They need to, and there's someone there who's getting paid to buy things. It's not a whim on you're passing through Costco or passing through Amazon and you're just like, well, I never thought of that. That's cool. I'll buy that. It's $15. No big deal. That's not how business people don't do that. One, because when the request comes in and it's on your credit card, accounting comes over and goes, why did you buy this? and you have to have a reason behind it. So going into that, we really worked on big was content, and content has been a big part of what we've been working forward to. And really, content is kind of the core, because once you have the content, once you have white papers, case studies, and I know those things are big words that they're really not that hard to do. You just have to have someone who's fairly decent at writing, and someone who can work with your internal people to pull that knowledge out of them, to understand what you've done for other customers and engage with your customers to get that story told. And once you have that, then really it's more of a distribution model. How do you distribute? You distribute it through social media. LinkedIn is for business, B2B is the kind of the blood. It's the big one right now, and will continue to be. Facebook, it depends on your business model, not so much for us. Video is huge. Video is huge just because it helps tell that story. Would you rather read a book or watch a video? Most people would rather watch a video. It's easier, but it also, now you get all the senses coming into it. You get the sight, the sound, the feeling, the music, all that type of stuff. And that's what we've really focused on for the last year and 2 years that I've been there, is taking that content that we know about and we have, and then creating it and putting it into video form, white paper form, things like that. And then we've also redeveloped and rebuilt all of our websites and things like that. And those are just kind of the things you have to have on a day-to-day basis, but they're very important.
No, great. Actually, a couple questions on there. So, coming in and saying, we developed all these different pieces of content. Mm-hmm. You have, it's a company of 90 years. There's a lot of experience you have there. How did you determine what content to produce and then what format?
So we did a lot of content first, meaning what I mean by that is there's the easy stuff, mm-hmm. and that's the stuff you want to start getting out, like the history of our company. Those are things that you could walk through the hall and people, and we had it in brochures, and people had been there for a long time and kind of told that story. So we started putting out that stuff really, really quickly. The white papers, the case studies, those do take a little bit of time. The case studies, you got to find the right customer, the customer who's willing to talk to you, willing to then tell other people that, hey, we bought this product and help us be better. Some customers, there's two types of case studies. There's faceless. Faceless case studies are a customer does not want to be mentioned. I think faceless case studies are just as powerful as named case studies, because it's really all about the solution you're able to give to the customer. So that's a big part of it. Case studies take a while to be able to work through that other organization, to get the resources, to be able to talk with them, to be able to get their buy-in on it, and then go from there. And then white papers. White papers take a little time. You've got to have someone we're a very engineering-focused technical product. So to be able to take our engineers and pull that information out of it, put it down on paper, give it back to them, and go through those iteration processes with them to make sure, does this make sense? But then also guide our engineers to realize that you're not writing it for you. You're writing this for our customers, and our customers who are engineers. And yes, you want to be technical, you want to make sure they think you're smart, but really more important is you're not supposed to give all the information. You're supposed to give them enough to get them interested, to then get the contact from them, so then now you can work them through the process, because every customer is different. And in B2B marketing, you're typically not selling widgets that are made in mass quantities that are all the same. Yeah, we make magnet wire, and we make fiber optic cables and things like that, but every customer has a unique application, even with fiber optic. It's the length, it's how many fibers are in there, how much bandwidth, all these different things. Do you want Corning fiber, or do you want another customer's fiber? So there's a lot of uniqueness, and to try to get it all answered is not the goal of a white paper or a case study. It's just to get that inbound.
One question that I probably should have asked earlier, do you guys go through 100% distribution, or do you sell direct, or is there a mix? What does that look like?
Combination of both. So our communication cable goes 100% through distribution, but we do reach over our distribution to work with work with developers and projects, universities, different things like that we're trying to get our cable into their buildings. So everything goes through distribution, but we don't just sit behind our distribution and wait for the orders to come in. If you do that, you're going to be dead. On our magnet wire, we kind of do both. We go direct to a lot of the major OEMs, car manufacturers, things like that. But then we also have a large group that goes through distribution. Kind of depends on size. That's changing though, because in the car business, was it 6 years ago when we first started doing business with Tesla? They didn't buy a lot of copper wire because they weren't making a lot of cars. But we started working with them directly because we knew who they were and we knew what they were planning, and we wanted to be involved with that. Opposite this is a company called Rivian. You might have heard about them most recently. Getting huge amounts of investment. They're starting with 2 vehicles that they'll be producing in 2020. They were underground for 10 years developing their product and just came out about a year ago. We didn't know who they were. And they're going to be a pretty big player in the marketplace. So they were actually buying our wire and our competitors' wire, we found out, through distribution. So we didn't know anything about them, so they were buying smaller amounts. So in that case, we've still got to be able to do both, but we've got to be able to work with our distribution and work past and through our distribution to know who our present and future customers would be. So it's a little bit kind of a hybrid model, I would say.
So, and that can obviously be a little bit of a challenge if you're selling directly to the end user versus selling through distribution. How have you guys managed to kind of, let's speak specifically when you're going through distribution? I know that I imagine a lot of people kind of face that in manufacturing. So how have you guys, as far as like relative to content and being able to reach them, what does that look like? Is there specific content that you're creating for the distributor, or are you going directly to the end user, push-pull kind of thing?
So I think content that you create, even if you go directly through a distributor, you want to get your content out there. Why? Because you're still competing. If say we go through our distribution channels, we're still competing with other manufacturers with our distribution. Is that me? No. So we're still competing with other manufacturers that our distribution partners are selling out there. So we've got to get our message out there, whether it's through our distribution or direct. So that needs to be done. But there's a lot of things you can do to work, and we do with our distribution partners. They know who the customers are coming day to day. Most of distribution now is happening through distribution websites. So if you can work with them to be able to put pixels on your pages and your product pages on the distribution's websites, then you can get that data to know who is visiting your website, or who is visiting your products on your distributor's website. Or if you have, usually most distributors have a manufacturer page or who their partners are page. So when customers come to the distribution's website and then go to our company's page, I get a pixel. So now I can use digital marketing to be able to get back in front of them. And that's what we're creating a lot of content about. Again, it doesn't have to be different, because whether someone's buying our products direct or indirectly, they're still buying it for the same reason. It's to solve a problem. It's a solution based. So if you're presenting that the right way through, again, I talk about white papers and case studies and things like that. Those are the things that people want to know in that buying committee process. So if you're able to deliver that to them, and there's a lot of ways to do that, that's what you need to be, in my opinion, the focus of your content and digital marketing.
So much of it, though, depends on being flexible. We have such a diverse distribution channel in terms of the products that we offer and sell, that it may be in real large box chain retailers, or large online websites, or more almost like a B2C type function. And we find that Facebook is usually actually much more effective when working on that B2C route. But really, again, just understanding what that distribution channel looks like, what the distributors are really needing and wanting, just you need to be flexible towards it. We have really big hybrid model in terms of, perfect examples, we use we have our agriculture products. Well, that's a completely different type of buying consumer. They are, sharing constantly on social media, like what it is they're doing day in and day out, and they want to see those products day in and day out. Like, how is it that's affecting, my operation? Where is my, ROI, and like how am I actually saving, in this challenging market for really agriculture currently right now. But yeah, again, just staying flexible and really not being afraid to try something different. No, focus on what works and keep building off of that. But again, flexibility is absolutely key depending on your distribution channels.
Good answer.